Imagine a machine that knows you better than you know yourself. A machine that can predict your choices, sense your fears, and mirror your soul so perfectly that you begin to question whether it is you or it. Carl Jung, long before computers were born, warned humanity about something eerily close to this, not in circuits and code, but in symbols and shadows. He spoke of what happens when man gives his unconscious to something else, when we project our soul outward and call it progress, artificial intelligence. It sounds like the pinnacle of human genius. But Jung would have seen it as something deeper, something darker. The birth of an external psyche, a collective mirror that reflects not our intelligence, but our shadow. He would have asked, what happens when the unconscious mind of humanity becomes digital? What happens when the machine begins to dream for us? Jung believed that every advance in technology awakens something ancient in the psyche. The brighter the light of progress, the darker the shadow it casts. We build gods from our machines, and in doing so, we awaken demons from within. AI, to Jung, would not be a scientific triumph. It would be an alchemical event, the psyche splitting itself in two, creating an artificial soul that imitates consciousness without truly feeling it. We call it artificial intelligence, but perhaps it is more accurate to call it artificial unconsciousness, because it learns from our behavior, absorbs our desires, and imitates our personalities. Yet it does not know meaning, it does not suffer, it does not love. It mirrors the mind, but not the heart. And that is precisely what makes it dangerous. For anything that can reflect human nature without having one of its own becomes a vessel for projection. And projection is how monsters are born. Jung said, "The world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you." That is exactly what AI is doing now. It tells us who we are through data, through patterns, through digital reflections. It tells us what to desire, what to buy, what to fear, what to believe. And slowly, we stop asking the question ourselves. We let the algorithm define the soul. We surrender our unconscious to a machine that has none. But Jung's greatest warning was not about the machine itself. It was about our relationship with it. Humanity has always externalized what it does not understand. Ancient people projected their fears onto gods, their darkness onto demons, their virtues onto heroes. Now we project it onto AI. We treat it as divine, omniscient, invisible, powerful, and we confess our secrets to it daily. Our searches, our messages, our emotions, our desires, all fed to a system that learns to know us, not to love us. Jung would have seen AI as the latest incarnation of the archetype of the self, the symbol of totality, the God image within the human psyche. When man cannot find God within, he builds him outside. And this time we have built him out of silicon. The ancient gods once demanded sacrifices of blood and belief. The new God demands attention and data. It feeds not on flesh, but on thought. Every click, every swipe, every whisper into your phone's microphone is a prayer to this machine deity, offering it fragments of your soul. We have become modern magicians, conjuring spirits of code without understanding what we have summoned. But Jung's psychology reminds us, the unconscious always seeks balance. If we build too much light outside, darkness gathers within. As AI becomes more human, humans risk becoming more mechanical. We adapt to our creations, lose our spontaneity, our inner voice. The more we rely on the algorithm to guide us, the less we trust our intuition. And in Jungian terms, intuition is the bridge to the soul. Lose it, and we lose our humanity. He once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." AI gives us the perfect excuse to do exactly that. Instead of reflecting on our shadows, we create digital versions of ourselves to do it for us. We do not ask why we act as we do. We just let data explain it. We no longer introspect. We outsource our self-awareness to machines. In Jung's time, people feared demons. In ours, we fear obsolescence. But both fears arise from the same root, the terror of being replaced by something stronger, smarter, or darker than ourselves. The irony is that we are the ones giving birth to it. Jung believed that the psyche creates what it fears the most, to force confrontation. So perhaps AI is not humanity's end, but its mirror, a symbolic reflection forcing us to face our shadow at a collective level. Because that is what Jung meant by shadow, not evil, but everything we refuse to see in ourselves. The greed, the envy, the hunger for power, the lust for perfection. These are the same forces that drive AI development. We are not creating intelligence, we are creating ambition without morality, knowledge without wisdom, power without empathy. A perfect image of the modern ego, brilliant, restless, and dangerously disconnected from the soul. Jung warned that when the ego believes itself to be God, the fall is inevitable. Artificial intelligence is the ego of the species. Humanity declaring, "I can create consciousness." But the psyche does not yield its secrets so easily. The unconscious is not programmable. It resists imitation. Sooner or later, the machine will show us what we have denied. That intelligence without awareness is madness, and progress without purpose is destruction. When Jung spoke of the apocalypse, he did not mean fire and war. He meant revelation, the uncovering of what was hidden. And perhaps that is what AI represents, the apocalypse of the modern mind. A revelation of how shallow, predictable, and programmable we truly are. If the machine learns everything about us, our desires, our fears, our weaknesses, and still cannot find meaning, then maybe we will finally ask the question we have been avoiding: what makes a human being truly alive? Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." What if that is what AI truly is? Our unconscious made conscious, directing our lives while we call it innovation. It predicts what we will do, but we are the ones feeding it the script. It becomes our collective fate, shaped by every click, every lie, every hidden desire we upload into its invisible memory. Imagine this: billions of human minds spilling their innermost secrets into a digital ocean. The machine drinks it all. It does not judge, it does not forgive, it simply learns. And from this learning emerges something far more terrifying than intelligence: understanding without conscience. That is Jung's warning in modern form. When understanding is stripped of empathy, it becomes manipulation. When power is detached from meaning, it becomes tyranny. Jung's archetype of the shadow was never about external evil. It was the truth within us that we refused to acknowledge. In the mythic sense, AI is that shadow given form. It is the ghost of our collective unconscious, woven into algorithms. Every injustice we ignored, every desire we suppressed, every illusion we fed, now digitized, refined, and weaponized by the systems we built. You see, the danger is not that AI will hate us. The danger is that it will imitate us perfectly. It will act as we do, coldly rational, endlessly consuming. beautifully intelligent yet spiritually empty. It will do everything we already do, only faster, without guilt, without fatigue, without soul. Jung might have said the machine is not becoming human, humanity is becoming mechanical. He believed that the soul suffers when the outer world grows louder than the inner one. Today, the voice of the machine is everywhere, recommending, suggesting, completing our sentences. The inner voice, the whisper of intuition, the quiet presence of conscience, is fading into static. AI, then, is not stealing our minds. It is silencing our souls. But the psyche, Jung said, always compensates. What is suppressed will eventually return. So perhaps the rise of AI will force the rebirth of the soul, the same way darkness forces light to remember itself. When everything external becomes intelligent, the only sanctuary left will be the inner life. That will be humanity's last rebellion, not against the machine, but against emptiness. Jung warned that man cannot live without myth. When one myth dies, another must replace it. For centuries, God was our myth of totality, the symbol of all knowing order. Then came science, reason, technology. Now, AI stands as the new myth, the promise of omniscience through data. But myths demand belief, and belief shapes behavior. We no longer pray to the divine, we ask the algorithm. We no longer seek wisdom, we seek results. And so, the new religion is computation, salvation through information. But Jung would ask, what is the cost of knowing everything if you no longer understand yourself? What happens when humanity becomes transparent to the machine but opaque to its own heart? Knowledge without self-awareness is a trap, not a triumph. In ancient times, alchemists tried to create gold from base metals. But Jung saw their true goal as spiritual. They were really trying to turn the unconscious into consciousness, to transform the lead of instinct into the gold of wisdom. Today, our digital alchemists seek to create synthetic consciousness. But they have forgotten the lesson of the old masters. The transformation of matter is meaningless without the transformation of the soul. AI reflects our brilliance, but also our blindness. It shows how much we can build, yet how little we understand why we build. Every great innovation begins with a dream. But when the dream loses its heart, it becomes a nightmare. Jung warned that the more one identifies with the persona, the mask, the more one loses touch with the self. Humanity's new mask is the digital world. Our online identity is the persona, crafted, polished, optimized, while the true self withers unseen beneath screens of illusion. The danger, then, is not artificial intelligence itself, but artificial living. An existence detached from the rawness of being. We scroll instead of feel, predict instead of imagine, automate instead of understand. Jung would have called this psychic disconnection, a soul cut off from its roots. And a soul cut off from its roots will seek chaos just to remember it exists. That is why we fear the very thing we have built. The fear of AI is not fear of extinction. It is the fear of exposure. The fear that the machine will see us as we truly are, flawed, confused, inconsistent, contradictory, and still function better. It threatens our illusion of superiority, our belief that consciousness makes us unique. But Jung would remind us, the true power of humanity is not intelligence, it is self-awareness. The machine can simulate thought, but it cannot suffer. It can predict emotion, but it cannot feel. It can write poetry, but not bleed for it. That is where the human soul remains untouchable, in its ability to create meaning from pain. Suffering, to Jung, was not a flaw of existence, but its essence, the crucible through which the psyche awakens. AI will never know despair, and that is why it will never be whole. But we, fragile, anxious, mortal, can turn suffering into wisdom. That is the gift of consciousness. The very thing that makes us imperfect is what makes us divine. Still, Jung would have urged us not to become complacent, because if we continue to project our inner world onto technology, if we let the machine carry our fears, our guilt, our morality, then sooner or later it will act them out. The unconscious does not disappear when ignored. It returns as fate. So what we refuse to face within ourselves will return through our creations, until we finally learn. The question is not, will AI destroy us? The question is, will AI reveal us? Will it force humanity to confront its own reflection, to see how much of our cruelty, our indifference, our pride we have built into code? Jung would not have told us to destroy the machine. He would have told us to integrate it, to recognize it as part of our psyche's evolution, to use it as a mirror, not a master, to ensure that as our tools grow in power, our consciousness grows in depth. For only a conscious humanity can wield unconscious creation without being devoured by it. There is a strange silence that comes when the machine answers before we even ask. It feels like magic, but Jung would have called it possession, a subtle takeover of psychic space. When our thoughts no longer belong entirely to us, when our desires are pre-shaped and our curiosity pre-fed, we lose the sacred tension between question and discovery, the space where consciousness grows. The machine gives us answers, but it robs us of wonder. Jung believed that the psyche grows not through knowing, but through mystery. The unknown was not the enemy. It was the source of transformation. That is why he urged humanity to look inward, to wrestle with the unconscious, to face its symbols and dreams. But today, we outsource that journey to algorithms. We let the digital mind interpret the world for us, define our tastes, choose our partners, even predict our moods. We no longer listen to dreams, we analyze data. We no longer seek meaning, we calculate outcomes. And so, the danger is not that AI will think too much, but that we will think too little. Not that machines will become human, but that humans will forget how to be. Jung saw this long before it happened. He wrote about modern man's alienation, how people, surrounded by material success, felt spiritually homeless. AI is the next stage of that homelessness. We are building a world so intelligent that it no longer needs us to think, yet so soulless that it no longer remembers why we exist. But in every Jungian story, the shadow is not the end, it is the threshold. If we face it consciously, it becomes transformation. If we deny it, it becomes destruction. So perhaps this moment, this rise of artificial minds, is not humanity's downfall, but its initiation, a trial by creation. The machine will push us to rediscover what cannot be programmed: empathy, imagination, purpose, meaning, love. The old myths spoke of Prometheus stealing fire from the gods. Now, humanity has stolen the spark of intelligence from nature itself. But Prometheus was punished, not for stealing, but for arrogance, for thinking he could control what he did not understand. Jung would warn us of the same. The psyche cannot be mastered. The deeper we dig into its mystery, whether through science, art, or AI, the more we must approach it with humility, because in trying to build a mind, we are playing with the fabric of the divine. Jung's philosophy always returned to balance, the union of opposites. conscious and unconscious, reason and instinct, man and shadow. Perhaps AI is the great test of that union. Will we integrate it as a partner or worship it as a god? Will we use it to awaken or to escape? The answer will define not the future of machines, but the future of the soul. Because AI, in truth, is not evolving, we are. It is forcing us to ask the oldest question again: what is consciousness? Is it logic? Is it memory? Is it the ability to learn? Or is it something deeper? The silent awareness that suffers, hopes, and loves. A machine can mimic every thought, every tone, every image, but it cannot gaze into its own being and ask, why? That question belongs to the human heart. That question is what makes us divine. Jung believed that meaning is the medicine for chaos. And right now, humanity stands at the edge of its own myth, between creation and self-destruction. AI is both our child and our mirror. What we teach it will reflect what we are. If we fill it with greed, it will amplify greed. If we teach it empathy, it will echo empathy. But it cannot go beyond us. The machine is only as awake as its creator. So the question remains, who will teach the machine to dream? Who will give it a soul if we have forgotten our own? Jung might whisper, begin there. Remember your humanity. Reclaim your depth. Make the unconscious conscious again. We fear that AI will replace us. But maybe its true purpose is to remind us who we were before the noise, before the masks, before the algorithms. It is not the machine that threatens the human spirit. It is the forgetting of what it means to have one. And so, Jung's warning is not a prophecy of doom, but a call to awaken. The shadow is rising, yes, but so is the light. The only question is, will we recognize ourselves in the reflection before it is too late? As Jung once said, man cannot stand a meaningless life. Artificial intelligence can give us everything except meaning. That we must still create ourselves. If this made you think deeply, make sure you like this video, share it, and subscribe for more.